a dream that my poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
Martin Luther King.
Amazing sights there.
It was really, it's a speech, one of those few speeches that really cuts through the ages, doesn't it? Now, of course, we have been reporting on Barack Obama overnight standing at that very same spot to mark that anniversary. But in light of recent events, such as the shooting of Trayvon Martin, has anything really changed in the land of the free and the home of the brave?
50 years after Martin Luther King's March on Washington, American President Barack Obama has addressed a crowd of thousands from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C.
What so proudly we hailed.
A bell rang to mark the exact minute in 1963 when Martin Luther King ended his famous "I Have a Dream" speech with the phrase, "Let freedom ring." Obama, the first black U.S. president, paid tribute to Martin Luther King and those who stood by his side.
The symbolism is just quite something to behold here. This was, after all, as you say, the first African-American president standing on that exact same step where Martin Luther King made his famous "I Have a Dream" speech exactly 50 years ago, overlooking not exactly the same amount of people, but large crowds here on the Mall as well, to listen to the words from the U.S. president, and much awaited words these were as well. We're expecting one of those big speeches from Barack Obama, and in a sense what we got here was an assessment of the current situation here in the United States in terms of race relations. First of all, Barack Obama puts himself in line with Martin Luther King Jr., saying that eventually even the White House changed, getting a black president in there for the very first time. But this was also an assessment of what still needs to be changed. There was talk here from Barack Obama of those great dreams that have not been kept, and the great unfinished business of equal opportunities in the United States.
The bell rang as a celebration of progress, but it rang also as a call for action.
I'm reminded that Dad challenged us. That's what he did, challenged our nation.
On the same steps, on the same day, 5 decades later, President Obama hailed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy.
His words belong to the ages, possessing a power and prophecy unmatched in our time.
The spirit of King was honored with an all-star lineup. 2 former presidents.
I'm thankful to Martin Luther King Jr. that his dream is still alive.
This march and that speech changed America.
And today's leaders in the African-American community.
Let freedom ring was Dr. King's closing call for a better and more just America.
We must keep the faith and keep our eyes on the prize.
For many, the call was direct.
The March on Washington teaches us that we are not trapped by the mistakes of history, that we are masters of our fate. But it also teaches us that the promise of this nation will only be kept when we work together.
As they marched, the crowd sang the freedom songs of the earlier generation, which gathered before the Lincoln Memorial half a century ago. They all recalled that day as a page in the history books, but some, like 69-year-old Jacqueline Hess, were retracing the same steps they'd taken in 1963.
We made a lot of progress in the past 50 years, but we've got a lot more to go.
Joyce Ladner still had the badge she wore for the 1963 march. Ladner remembered the blatant oppression in her native Mississippi that produced such a drive for change.
Coming north for the march and to focus the federal government on the conditions down south did in fact give us a very broad base of support.
The crowd
who've gathered here today aren't just here to celebrate the anniversary of a speech. They're here because they think the fight for equality must go on. They're here because the dream hasn't yet been fulfilled. This was a celebration of the legacy left by the legendary words spoken on this stage. But like King's speech, it was also a rallying call. The fight for equality must go on.